I'm fine. I have not been body snatched. And I will do whatever I can to take control of this situation. Is it possible? And hear me out here. So, all right, here we go. I'm going to pretend I'm pushing record because that feels right. Okay, I'm pressing record. Boop. Hi, everybody. I'm Lauren Howard. Welcome to Different, Not Broken, which is our podcast on exactly that there are a lot of people in this world walking around feeling broken, and the reality is you're just different, and that's fine. Lately, I have done something that I swore I wouldn't do. Okay, not that I swore I wouldn't do. I knew I would do it. But that I frequently try not to do, which is fly on an airplane. Because I don't know if anybody has caught on to this. This is probably new information. I have a few control issues. I know it's shocking. Please catch your breath. Just bear with me. I know the science behind it. I theoretically understand the physics behind it, but still there is no reason that metal tube should be hurtling through the air. It just does not make sense. And then these planes do these things that everybody acts like is normal, and it cannot possibly be normal. You hit turbulence and the whole damn plane shakes, and you can hear all of the luggage above your head trying to burst out of the compartments because the turbulence is so bad. And everybody around you is like, this is fine. There's nothing happening that's weird on this thing that is definitely not on the ground and is in fact many, many, many thousands of feet in the air. This is fine. It doesn't make any sense to me. I've flown multiple times in the last couple weeks, guys. I know. I'm fine. I have not been body snatched. I don't know how to prove that to you because everything I say is weird, so I don't know how to prove it to you, but just know that I have not been body snatched. I still don't like wearing shoes. The fact that I had to wear shoes on the airplane was rude, but I'm not going to put my dirty bare feet on other people, so I wore shoes. But that's the way you can tell because I was angry that I had to wear shoes. Anyway, if I fly regularly, I'm usually okay. It's when you get the big gap between flights that the next time I have to fly, I'm like, oh my God, this is so awful. So when I have to get on a plane again in 2 days to go back home, I'll probably be okay-ish and appropriately medicated, to be clear. But if I have to then not fly for several months, which is usually my typical, I will be a basket case before the next flight. I don't know whose life this is, but it certainly cannot be mine. Anyway, the first 2 times recently that I flew, I took our chief clinical officer with me. 1, because I didn't want to fly alone, and 2, because I just like having her with me. It was the most affirming experience I've ever had in my life. And I say this as a person who has been very fortunate to be affirmed in many capacities throughout my life, including in the home that I grew up in, which was, in hindsight, very, very affirming because my dad didn't realize that's what he was, but that's what he was. But I cannot oversell how good a choice it is that if you are going to get an emotional support human, have it be the therapist who runs your clinical team, because she's going to be really, really solid at the emotional support. Beforehand, she called me just to see what I needed to be comfortable on the airplane, which is adorable because I'm a grown human and I can figure it out, but she's kind and compassionate and for whatever reason with her terrible taste likes me a lot. And so she decided that she wanted to call and make sure that I had everything I needed. And I said, to be honest, all I need is the Klonopin that is in my bag. She was like, okay, that is fine. And I said, and I will need you to probably hold my hand. To which she said, I can do that too. She did such an epic fucking job of holding my hand. She really did. I was thinking about it afterward. And I was like, what an incredible fucking human. So we're on this airplane. And I am, as I said before, appropriately medicated. And I very rarely take medication. But my anxiety about airplanes borders on irrational. Like most of the things I do. But that one in particular, you don't want to have a meltdown on an airplane in the middle of the air when there's probably an air marshal a couple rows away from you. You just don't want that to happen. So that is one of the situations where I feel like I probably should. It's not the type of anxiety where I just feel like I'm worried about something. It's walls closing in. I'm trapped. Everything is awful. The space cannot be big enough. I need to grab something and squeeze hard type anxiety. It is like fully irrational. I am not in control of this situation, and I will do whatever I can to take control of this situation. And do you know what legal things that you can do to take control of an airplane? Not many. So it's not a good idea. Anyway, she sat in the middle seat for me because I like to be pressed up against the wall because it makes me feel safe in the tube that is hurtling through the air. I recognize that makes no sense. Just go with it. So she sat on the middle seat for me, which is so nice. And like, I wouldn't have done that for someone else. That is not a comfortable place to sit. And she just like let me do what I was going to do. And I kind of like placed I laid against the side with I was using my sweatshirt as a pillow. And I needed to grab something from my bag, and she helped with that. And that was so nice of her. And then we were just kind of chatting about plans for the day. We had a couple of events we had to go to that night, what time we were going to check into the hotel, et cetera, et cetera. And every now and then we would like hit an air pocket or something would change that would freak me out. And I would reach out and grab her, and she would just let me grab her and then not miss a beat in the conversation we were having. So it was just completely normalized. She didn't draw attention to it. She didn't make it a thing. She didn't ask me if I was okay. Don't ask people that when they're clearly not okay. It doesn't help. Nothing. She didn't draw attention to it. Whatever appendage I grabbed onto, she let me have. It was usually like a wrist or a hand. It didn't happen that often because I had done a pretty good job of calming myself beforehand. Actually, both the flight there and back for that trip were really smooth, and there was very little to write home about. The most recent flight we took, literally we landed and the flight attendant got on the PA system and said, well, that was fun. So that tells you a little bit about that experience. I didn't realize how validated and whole and affirmed it made me feel. She didn't make a thing out of it. She didn't draw attention to it. She just made her physical body parts available to me for my personal use, for my sensory regulation. I also told her beforehand, like, if nobody around me is freaking out, I'm not going to freak out because I use everybody around me as a cue for what's happening. And if I see somebody else respond to the fact that the plane did something weird, I'm going to respond. But for the most part, like I've never been on a plane where anybody really like made any movement that would tell me that the things that I was responding to, anybody else had noticed or had noticed enough for it to be concerning. I will say that I have very weird ears, and that's kind of a funny thing to say, but my eardrums are all messed up because I don't feel when I get ear infections until my eardrum perforates. And so I feel pressure in airplanes different than everybody else, and pressure changes in airplanes feel different to me. And so I know that there's a good chance that I'm feeling something that nobody else does. And so if I look around me and like nobody else is responding to it, I'm like, okay, that's just my weird ears. And so she knew that going in. And so I think she was like extra calm so that I would take the cue and chill the fuck out, which I sort of did. But the point being, the comfort and the support that I received had nothing to do with what she did and almost everything to do with what she didn't do. She didn't make a thing out of it. She didn't draw attention to it. She didn't ask me if I needed anything. She didn't make a production out of anything. If I grabbed her arm, she just gave me her arm, continued talking, didn't miss a beat. We continued having our conversation. When I let go, she just took her arm back. It was no big deal. And I got through the whole experience not feeling like a fucking alien. There is so much to be said for quiet support. It's not to say that people don't need loud support, and I am always here to provide loud support, but I don't think I had ever felt the full impact, especially as a very anxious person who tends to be surrounded by people who really, really want to help and who are well-meaning in their desire to help, but who sometimes, I won't say make it worse, but create additional stimuli in their attempt to help, which does not help me calm my anxiety whatsoever. It was the least stimulating environment that you could possibly be in while in a metal tube hurling through the air. And so to Natasha, who I love dearly and who says she listens to my podcast, so we'll see if that's true. Thank you for being the most affirming human on the planet and for making me feel so safe in an environment where I will never feel safe. And you will forever be my emotional support friend who has to travel with me everywhere I go. Sorry, but not sorry. She does say she listens to this podcast, so we'll see, because I'm not going to tell her beforehand. She quotes it back to me fairly regularly. I know she does actually listen, but... So before, we asked you to brag on yourself, because I don't think we do that enough. And I think a lot of the really shockingly impressive people who I know are so busy trying to be modest that they have no idea how impressive they are. And so I encouraged you to brag about yourself. And this week, we have our first brag. So let's hear from Deborah, who did something tough that I'm very jealous of and that my husband won't let me do. Okay, not won't let me. He will let me. He's not in control, but he thinks I'm bonkers for waking up one day and deciding I want to do this. It's been like a regular back and forth in our house for like 6 months. But anyway, Deborah did the damn thing.
Hey, I'm Deborah M, and I just got my first tattoo. It's a phoenix, because of course it is. I booked the appointment, didn't cancel it 10 times, and sat through 3 hours without crying or throwing up, which for me is Olympic level success. Bragging? Absolutely. I earned this ink.
I want to talk about toilet paper. There's this very stereotype, for lack of, I don't know what else to call it, stereotypical something in a heteronormative appearing household that the woman or the person who fills that role, that traditional gender role, is the one who yells at people to put the toilet paper on the roll. And that if we have traditional gender roles, the more masculine individual fails to all the time. I am here to say that that is not the case in my house. I am actually the jackass who refuses to put the toilet paper on the roll. And my husband is the one who asks me and reminds me all the time to do it, and truly does not understand why there is such a deficit in my brain to complete this. And I've actually spent a fair amount of time thinking about it, because this is definitely the brain power that I need to be applying in any place whatsoever. 100%, absolutely. So part of it is that I hate the spring-loaded toilet papery thingies. I hate them. They require so many hands, and I'm not coordinated enough to keep them together while putting them in the middle of the roll, while also putting them back in the thing that creates the tension so that it stays on the roll. I find that whole process annoying, and I do not want to participate in it. And most of our toilet paper rolls are that, and so I just choose not to participate in it. And that's not good, because when I look at myself and say, hey, stop being a jackass and just put it on the roll, I just do it, and nothing dies, and no one gets hurt. And in fact, my marriage is probably improved for it, and it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. But if I look at it and I'm like, that toilet paper needs to go on that roll, I don't want to. And I just don't. It can sit on it. It can sit near it. It can sit next to it. I don't care. I don't want to deal with the tensiony, spring-loady thingamajig that makes this whole thing. I don't want to deal with it. And that is a bizarre hill to die on. That is a really bizarre hill to die on. And now we'll go to Allison, who has this week's small talk.
I shut down socially way faster than I used to, and I'm not sure if that's burnout, age, or just me finally noticing it. How do you tell the difference between needing rest and avoiding life? Because right now, everything feels exhausting.
I can totally relate to that. Is it possible, and hear me out here, is it possible that everything feels exhausting because everything is exhausting? Is it possible that you are not giving yourself credit for the reality of the current toxic hellscape that we are existing in, and you are somehow making it that you are having an unreasonable reaction, when in reality, you are not given the space to have the very reasonable reaction that you are having? I'm sure there's a good reason to know where it's coming from. But in the moment when you need it, I don't know that that matters. If you need rest, rest. If your body is telling you to retreat from whatever, retreat from whatever. First off, we are in the post-Halloween, pre-January 15th vortex that doesn't exist. Time and space is not a thing. There is nothing that happens now short of emergency medical care that is not a January problem. And we don't give ourselves enough credit for how freaking exhausting just existing during this time of year is. And it is freaking exhausting. So freaking exhausting. So there's that. There is a world where I think there are people who are the opposite of this too. Like, I think there are people who get older and want to be more social and go seek out other people. But it's also very common to get a little bit older and be like, I don't need that. I don't want that. There is, as you learn more about people, I think you decide how much you actually want of people, or you start to decide how much you actually want of people. The kind of natural optimism that you're going to stumble across a new best friend starts to deplete as you get older and you have what I call the emotional graveyard of best friends. Hopefully not a real graveyard. That would be weird. But like, you look back and you're like, well, we were so close for a while. And then, oh yeah, I talked to that person a lot, but it phased out. And sometimes it just is like the natural progression of a relationship, and something bad happens. And sometimes you guys just move in different directions. But the more experiences that you have like that, where somebody disappoints you, and I don't mean that in like they did something to fail you, even though that does happen. I just more mean like it didn't work out again, or it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, or they weren't who I thought they were, or I, thought this was going to work out differently than it would, or than it did. You get to the other side of that and you're like, I don't know how much more I want to go back for more of that. Sometimes it happens with family. The older I get, the general less tolerance I have for BS from my family, which manifests in a number of ways. One, in places I would have kept my mouth shut before, I do not. Believe it or not, there were times in my life where I kept my mouth shut. I know that's shocking. Pick yourself up off the floor. It has happened. And then in other times, it's like, I just am not going to engage. It is too, I know that engaging in this relationship in any way is going to take so much from me that it's not worth it. And so those are kind of like two sides of the same coin. When you are the only person who identifies as female, as a woman in a family of a bunch of people who identify as male, who are, are all my brothers, there is a whole lot of just emotional management they expect you to do. Not that long ago, two of my brothers were like, they were arguing about something shocking. One had pissed the other one off. The first one actually almost immediately came back with an apology because he realized that he had been an asshole. The second one basically was on a page where he was like, you were an asshole and I don't have to accept your apology. And like, he's right, he doesn't have to, but also like, why are you being a dick? He apologized. And so I texted my sister-in-law on the side and was like, this is like being an intimacy coordinator for monkeys. Why are they so bad at this part? Like, why do I have to prompt them on how they're supposed to? Somebody apologized to you. What do you say? I wasn't involved with it whatsoever, but it started by both of them contacting me separately to tell me that the other had been an asshole. And I knew exactly what happened. One of my brothers was going through something really hard. The other brother was just having a bad day. The first brother asked the second one about his hard situation because it's something that's in my oldest brother's area of expertise. My oldest brother was distracted, having a bad day, and was an asshole in response instead of being like, can we talk in 2 days when I'm not buried under these things? Normally, I just would have been like, can you guys stop being idiots? Instead, when my oldest brother reached out to me to talk about it, I think my response was, I know you are too autistic to understand the necessity of responding in this situation, but I'm going to need you to get your head out of your ass and respond appropriately, because you having a blow up to somebody who is going through a really tough time was not appropriate, even if he's your brother. To which he was like, you're right, totally right. And he apologized. But in the past, I would not have said that to him. In the past, I would not have just gone toe to toe with him and been like, get your head out of your ass. Some of that's a function of age. Some of it's a function of experience. some of it's a function of just what the fuck, dudes? Like, get out of your own way. Stop making problems for me because you two can't communicate. That's a lot of getting older and figuring out how to navigate situations you do and don't want to be in. And you only have to be in them a couple of times before you're like, nope, don't want to do that again. Oh, there's a chance that's going to happen. I'll pass. Is that not participating in life? I don't know. Is it protecting your peace? Probably. Probably a lot. And so I don't know about you, but I would really, really love to have some precedented times. Since we're not going to get that, I think you need to give yourself some grace for the fact that you are exhausted because the world is exhausting and that getting older tells you what bullshit you're willing to put up with. Thanks for being here, guys. Have a good day. Love you, mean it. I am extra foul-mouthed today. So many fuck words.